commanding officer of Kuga Battalion of 46 Assam Rifles, Colonel Biplav Tripathi, 41, spent the night of November 12, 2021 at Bihang Tea Village in Manipur's 𝓟𝓮𝓽𝓮𝓻 district, where he had gone for a community outreach program. As was the practice in such outreaches, he had taken along with him his family, wife Anuja, 33, and 8-year-old son Abir. The next morning he made his way back through the dense jungles towards his district headquarters. Traveling in a black military bolero, he was accompanied by a quick response team of 12 armed troopers in a convoy of 4 vehicles. One had to be careful nowadays in the border areas between Manipur and Myanmar, which boasted of at least 40 militant groups. Though traveling with family was protection enough, militants almost never harmed non-combatants in an unwritten code of ethics. And anyway, militancy was down. Most of the tribal militant groups were in various stages of peace talks with the union government. Just a few days earlier, Colonel Biplav had celebrated Diwali with his family in Manipur, a place where he was recently posted to in July. Previously, he had served in Mizoram, where his mates referred to him as Josh Machine for his enthusiastic and successful anti-drug drives in the state, where he tenaciously went after poppy cultivators. A policy he was expected to continue and even ramp up under Manipur's Meitei BJP Chief Minister Biren Singh. But the anti-drug drive was affecting the militants' main source of livelihood and their ability to buy weapons. Tension was in the air amongst Kuki Zomi Hamar Hill tribes against the Chief Minister's border fencing project with Myanmar, because their traditional homelands straddled both sides of the border and their frequent intermingling would be affected. Meanwhile, another fault line was building up among the two major Manipuri ethnic groups, the Vaishnavite Meiteis and Christian Kukis. Due to Christian missionaries, many Meiteis had embraced Christianity, leading to Hindu Meitei outfits becoming more radical, resulting in a major Meitei-dominated Maoist insurgent group so alienating Christian Naga Hill tribes that they broke off and formed their own faction. Meanwhile, Kukis were coming into Imphal Valley, seeking jobs and owning property, but the hills were out of bounds for the Meiteis because it was constitutionally protected. So while outwardly peace had returned to Manipur, there was an undercurrent building up beneath the surface. Colonel Biplav was still 65 kilometers from his district headquarters of 𝓟𝓮𝓽𝓮𝓻 when the first IED exploded. A series of explosions took place in the front, center and rear of the convoy, leaving large craters on the motorable road and cutting off escape routes. With the team trapped, the militants then came out of the bushes outside 𝓟𝓮𝓽𝓮𝓻 village and shot the victims. 4 more personnel of the paramilitary force perished in the ambush and another 6 were grievously injured. The November 2021 attack on Colonel Biplav can be seen as the starting point of yet another chapter of violence in the tumultuous history of Manipur. Part of the violence is a direct result of the British colonial era policy of making hill tribes a strategic buffer between British India and Burma. When Kukis, who have their roots in Chin state of western Myanmar, first arrived in Manipur during the 1830s and 40s, the Meitei Raja of Manipur, Noor Nara Singh, let the British decide where they should settle. Colonel William McLoach, the British political agent at the time, placed them in the hills as a first line of defense against the Burmese. We know this because he documented it in a note to the British Governor General.
I put the Kukis in the hills all around the valley, where their presence would be useful on exposed frontiers.
So successful was the policy that the then Bengal government did the same.
A large colony of Kukis in the neighborhood of Lanting to act as a barrier for North Kachar.
But after Upper Burma was annexed by the British, military aid to Manipur was reduced substantially. With the Raja no longer considered strategically important, the Brits now treated him with scant respect. So the Meiteis rebelled and killed the British political agent, the Chief Commissioner of Assam and several other officers, leading to the 28-day 1891 Anglo-Manipur War, which quickly ended the Meitei rebellion. Later, the British Parliament heatedly debated of what to do with the Kuki tribes.
They must be administered directly by us. No, they must continue to be ruled via Manipur like before.
A middle ground was found for hill tribes to be supervised by the British, though the buffer strategy was still kept in play. Thus, the division between the people of the hills and people of the plains was another divide and rule policy of the British that troubles us to this day. When India got independence, it only removed the royal family from the equation. But the division continued as part of its security approach to border areas. much like the logic that India then used on the China frontier, letting the border areas remain untouched and unconnected, believing that even if the Chinese were to roll in, they couldn't get any further, as there were no roads or bridges and the terrain acted like a natural defense. Thus, the autonomy of the hill areas in Manipur were reinforced through Article 371C, like Kashmir's now repealed Article 370. While full statehood was granted to Manipur in 1972, hill tribes were only given representation in the cabinet. Without development and jobs, the youth took to illegal but profitable smuggling of drugs and weapons, supporting the many insurgency groups fighting both the Indian government and the Burmese junta and each other. India eventually brought insurgency under control through military operations, followed up by peace agreements. As stability returned to the region, Delhi withdrew the much dreaded AFSPA in the northeast and in 19 police jurisdictions of Manipur. Democracy began to take root, attracting the newer generation of cookies to gravitate towards the Impal Valley to take jobs. However, things changed abruptly on the last day of Jan 2021 when Aung San Suu Kyi's democratically elected government was overthrown in Myanmar. Refugees and soon armed resistance groups flowed into Manipur from across its porous borders, leading to a huge rise in poppy cultivation. 15,000 acres in the hills are devoted to this endeavor, according to Manipur's chief minister, ignoring ties of kinship they had with hill tribes. The majority-obsessed BJP government then declared fleeing Zoe tribes as illegal immigrants, insisted on NRC to determine foreigners in the Kuki-dominated hill districts, reserved as forests large swaths of Kuki-Zomi Himar lands, leaving the nomadic tribes' traditional areas as out of bounds and severely disrupting their livelihoods. Then the Meitei-dominated Manipur Assembly in March 2023 withdrew the suspension of operations against the two major armed Kuki and Zomi entities, leading to such a severe loss of confidence in the Biren Singh government that even BJP Kuki MLAs demanded that Kuki hill areas be protected under the 6th schedule. Into this cauldron, the Manipur High Court removed the last existing safeguard for the hill tribes. I hereby recommend the inclusion of the Meitei community in the scheduled tribes list. All hell broke loose once the order was made public on April 19, and both sides have their grouses, which we won't go into as there is already so much written about in the media. The challenge for Delhi now is to break this constant cycle of violence that has been going on in Manipur among hill tribes and locals even before the BJP came to power. One way to see the current problem, despite the conflict being along ethnic lines, is that this was a cry for democracy among hill tribes and for faster integration with mainland India, because the issues were similar to mainstream states in the country: reservations, sharing of land resources, and political power. In a telling event this 76th Independence Day, Kuki Zomi Hamar communities celebrated the occasion by screening Bollywood blockbusters at a makeshift open-air theatre in Churachandpur, breaking the ban on Hindi movies clamped by an armed outfit 23 years ago to stall the tribe's process of Indianization. Therefore, time has come that hill tribes cannot be treated as a buffer any longer. Special efforts are already being made to bring development to the hill areas with hashtag East-West Interconnect. Article 371C must be done away with here too. However, land rights for Kukis still need to be protected due to the huge financial inequalities between the two communities. The border between the northeast and Myanmar and Bangladesh must be fenced and patrolled to keep Myanmar's problems from becoming our problems. The Kukis also have a significant presence in Mizoram, Arunachal, Meghalaya and northern Bangladesh, and the government must make sure that the fires of Manipur should not spread elsewhere, as they already had to an extent in Mizoram, so that the life of Colonel Viplav and his family and that of all the people who died in this violence should not go in vain. Bisbo's limerick. In Manipur state, the fires still burn, hill tribes and locals a process in churn. For both it's their home, part of their genome. Live and let live is the lesson we learn. You will also find these sources listed in our video description section.